Hey everybody, it's Jim from Cigars. I'm sitting outside here smoking the Alec Bradley Coyol cigar, which is actually one of my favorite cigars. And it got me to thinking, you know, in the Alec Bradley line, this is very much an overlooked cigar. The Prensado, the Tempest, the Black Market, all those get all the attention. And pretty much every line of cigar, as I was thinking about it, has sort of a Cinderella in the line that gets ignored, but yet it's pretty good. So that's what I'm going to do in this video today, is talk about the Cinderella cigars, the overlooked cigars. As long as I'm smoking this Alec Bradley cigar, we may as well start by talking about Alec Bradley, and I think the Coyol is perhaps the most overlooked cigar in their line. And Alec Bradley is like a Rocky Patel, and we'll talk about them, just coming out with these humongous cigar lines, and they promote something this month and next month it's something else. And there's a lot of good cigars, I think, that get lost in the shuffle. They also put out a lot of not so good cigars too. But anyway, let's get back to talking about Alec Bradley. Alec Bradley, as we talked about, has a real broad line, some pretty good cigars that have won awards and all that stuff. But the Coyol gets overlooked. This is a medium body cigar, and when it first came out, I think it was about 8 or 9 years ago, it was billed as what's called an estate cigar. In other words, all the tobacco was grown not only in the same country, like a Puro, but on the same farm. And in the more recent things I've read about the cigar, doing some research on it, I don't think that's true anymore. I think the wrapper definitely comes from the Coyol estate, but the rest of the stuff now comes from other places in Nicaragua. Nonetheless, it's still a good cigar. I would definitely recommend this one as a Cinderella. The other Alec Bradley I'm going to suggest is the Project 40. And I did a review on that, I don't know, a couple of years ago. And if you recall that review, the Project 40 was this weird project that Alan Rubin had about where he said 40% of your happiness comes from 10% of your leisure activities, or some such story like that. Anyway, it's kind of a weird story for a pretty good cigar. It's a nice mid-price point cigar. There's a Maduro version and a natural version available. And Project 40 is another one I'd recommend as a Cinderella in the Alec Bradley line. Let's move on. Let's talk about Rocky Patel. Man, talk about a company that just churns out cigars one after another. And I think they get kind of a bad rap because somebody smokes one of the lesser ones and says, Rocky Patels must not be any good. But hidden away in their line are a couple Cinderella. One of them is the number 6. That's a medium-bodied cigar. It's a Habano wrapper. I did a review on that as well, and it's a good cigar. It really is a good, solid cigar, good construction, really good taste, one that I really like. Another one in the line that's gotten lost in the shuffle is the Sun-Grown Maduro. And the Sun-Grown Maduro is a good cigar. I liken it in terms of the blend to the Master Blends 3. It's very, very similar in blend. Actually, I like it a little bit better than the Master Blends 3 though. The next brand we're going to talk about is My Father. And as you recall, I did a brand deep dive on My Father recently, and I did come across a couple and smoked them that are really pretty good and tend to get lost in the shuffle among all the very good My Father cigars. One is Fonseca. As I mentioned in that video, Fonseca is a brand that they actually bought from Quesada and started making the cigars by My Father. And it's got a nice medium body, pretty good price point, very fancy looking cigar for the price. So I definitely like that one. The other My Father I'm going to recommend is the El Centurion. In the El Centurion, the version of that I like is the H2KCT. That just stands for Havana 2000 seed wrapper. That's a very good tasting cigar. I smoked one of those after I did that My Father deep dive, and I said, holy cow, this is a really good cigar, one we shouldn't overlook in the My Father line. Next, let's talk about foundation cigars. When we think of foundation, we think of the Olmec and the Tabernacle and the Wise Man. But their budget brand, if you will, it's really more of a value brand, is Charter Oak. And Charter Oak comes in Connecticut, Habano, and Maduro versions. And I haven't bought one recently, but when I would buy them at the cigar store a year or two ago, they were selling for like $6 a piece. And they're a good solid smoke, certainly not a Wise Man or an Olmec in quality, but very, very good for the price. Next one we're going to talk about is La Aroma de Cuba. And if you've been following that line for any period of time, They are expanding very rapidly. They're just coming out with one after another. Most recently, they came out with the Noblesse, and right before that, a Connecticut, just several months before. But the one I really like and the standout for me and the Cinderella of that line is the Edicion Especial. It reminds me a lot of the Allegiance. Although it's not a Sumatra wrapper, it really has a lot of Allegiance qualities. If you like the EP Carrillo Allegiance, give a try to that Edicion Especial. I really think it's a good cigar. Next, let's talk about Ashton. And of course, Ashton, we think about the cabinet, we think about the ESG, and we think about the VSG. But people tend to forget the old classic Ashton line. They have a Connecticut that's really good, and also a Maduro that are called Ashton Classic and have a kind of a plain Jane white band on them. They're a little bit high priced for what they are, but they're excellent cigars, and I think they're worth a try. Moving on, the New World Montecristo. Talk about a brand that has way too many cigars in the line. That is New World Montecristo. We're not talking about the Cubans, we're talking about New World ones. And among all those, and there's some stinkers in that line, I'll tell you that, but among all those is the Espada. And the Espada cigar is actually the first joint venture that Montecristo made with other companies. And for that one, they worked with Plasencia and came out with the Espada, and more recently, the Espada Oscuro. I would recommend either one of those. I would not pay sticker price for it. Shop around. Don't pay the $17 that they charge at your cigar store. Another old line is Macadudo. And Macadudo is well known in the heyday of cigars in the 90s for being a Connecticut cigar company. And that image kind of stuck with them through the 2000s. And to shake that image, they came out with a line called Inspriado. And I really like the Inspriado line overall. I recommend any of them. There's several, there's I think 5 or 6 different versions. But the ones I really like the most, if you're a Connecticut smoker, Inspriado White. And if you are a medium full to full smoker, the Inspriado Red. All right, we're gonna go back to another huge cigar line company, and that is CAO. Man, they got so many cigars in their line that they kind of get watered down. But I'm going to give you 2 that I think are worth looking at. The first one is the Pilon Anejo. The Pilon line's been around forever, but the Anejo takes it a step further and ages it. I think it's 3 to 5 years aging. And it really has turned out to be a very good cigar. And it just came out, I think, a year or 2 ago. So it's definitely worth looking into the Pilon Anejo. Another one worth looking into is the MX2. And MX2 is actually the first of what they refer to as double Maduro cigars or triple Maduro cigars. They were way ahead of the curve with the MX2. The MX2 actually has, I believe, a Maduro wrapper and a Maduro binder on it. If you like Maduros, I would definitely give the MX2 a try. Drew Estates has the black, and that's kind of a knockoff of that, as Camacho has, I think, the triple Maduro. But stick to that MX2. I think that's the best of those 3. Last but not least, J.C. Newman. And of course, they have the Julius Caesar and the Diamond Crown and all that kind of stuff. But they also have the Perla Del Mar, which is, again, their value brand. And it comes in Corojo, Maduro, and Connecticut. And frankly, I'm not much of a J.C. Newman fan for the higher end stuff. I sort of like Brick House, but I'm not a big fan of Julius Caesar or Diamond Crown. But that PDM is something you should try. All right, so I went into a lot of brands. I'm really eager to hear what you have to say, though. What are your favorite unsung cigars, your Cinderella cigars? Because I think everybody has them, and I really want to hear that from you. So I'll talk to you in the comments. If you haven't subscribed, hit that button. I'll see you next time from Cigars, Cigars, Cigars.